When you think of castles, what do you think of? Homes for kings and queens and princes and princesses, right? Well, what if I told you the almost 1,000-year-old Tower of London was so much more than that? I've been fascinated by the British royal family for as long as I can remember. As soon as I found out there were real kings and queens and princes and princesses, I have followed them. I have read many books on the subject as well as their homes, and I've also watched many documentaries about them. I brought along a letter that was sent from the Queen to show as well. And throughout its history, the Tower of London has been many things. It's been a fortress, it's been a home, it's been a prison, it's been a menagerie to animals, and it's the current home to the crown jewels of England. Let's start from the beginning. In Anderson Caldwell's book, The Tower of London, he says that the construction on the Tower of London began in 1078. It lasted 20 years before it was finished. When William the Conqueror came over in 1066, he began building fortresses all over the country. But he needed one in the country's capital of London. He wanted to incite fear in Londoners so they wouldn't rebel against him. He brought in masons from Normandy, his homeland, to start in with building the fortress. But it was mainly Englishmen that built the tower. There were many turrets or towers, as most people know them, for watchouts to make sure, the enemy wasn't coming, and also for archers in case they were coming. And if the tower was a great fortress for defense, it was also going to be a great place to call home. Many queens mainly lived there throughout its history. Anne Boleyn is probably the most famous resident of the tower. She was King Henry VIII's second wife. And according to Lucy Worsley of the historicroyalpalaces.org, she lived there before her coronation, right after she had married Henry. But she also lived there right before her death. You see, he was married when he met Anne, but he needed a son, and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, just wasn't producing a son. But in order to marry Anne, he needed to break with the Catholic Church. He did that. And he created the Church of England, which didn't make too many people happy. And Anne didn't follow through on her promise to produce a son. She did produce an heir, Elizabeth I, but never a son. So Henry drew up false charges and sent her back to the Tower, but this time as a prisoner. And she lived in her queen's quarters until she was executed. Sir Thomas More was also a prisoner of the Tower. He was a trusted advisor of Henry, but he did not go along with his wish to marry Anne and separate from the Catholic Church. Henry sent him to the Tower in hopes that he would change his mind, but he never did. And at Anne's behest, he was also killed. These are the princes in the Tower. Their father was Edward IV, and on his death, their uncle, Richard, he was the Duke of Gloucester at the time, sent them to the Tower. He was their protector. So what that meant was he was going to rule in their place until they were of age to take the throne. But that wasn't the case. The boys entered the Tower, but no one ever saw them alive again, and Richard became Richard III. As a menagerie, the Tower held many different types of animals. According to my Newsweek book, The Tower of London, kings at the time were given gifts of animals, exotic animals, foreign to their land. The King of Norway sent a polar bear that was allowed to hunt in the River Thames. The King of France sent an elephant, and there were also lions and tigers, and those were the most prosperous animals that lived there. But Londoners were able to come and see the animals. These are the statues representing what used to live there. The tower they lived in was actually, and still is, called the Lion's Tower. The Londoners could come in and see all the animals that they would never see in their lifetime had they not been gifted to the king. These are the crown jewels of England. The tower is where they live now, under lock and key and guards. So they only come out when a new king or queen is coronated. So the last time they saw the outside was 1952 when the queen was coronated. So traveling back through history, the tower has served many purposes. It was a fortress, a home, a prison, a home to animals, and now home to the crown jewels. So if you're ever looking for a place to visit full of mystery and mystique, try visiting the Tower of London if you're ever in England. This is my audience. This is my mother, my other half, my daughter, and my little daughter, and my grandmother.